Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. My name's Jonathan Cutting. I'm the Account Director, BMC Digital Service Operations at KTSL. And today we're going to give you a high-level view of BMC TrueSight Cloud Cost Control Solution. Just from an agenda perspective, Jim Waring, BMC Solution Engineer, is going to give a 30-minute demo, and then after the demo, I'm going to give a solution recap, and we'll then do Q&A. There'll be no Q&A, I hope you can bear with me, but no Q&A during the demo, and any questions can be managed afterwards or one-to-one post the webinar. So without further ado, I'm now going to hand over to Jim Waring, who's going to show you the solution.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Cheers.
Yep. Sorry, I was just getting myself off the mute button. So, BMC Cloud Cost Control, TrueSight Cloud Cost Control, has 4 key areas in which it brings value, and those 4 areas are around visibility of cost across the multi-cloud environment. So, currently we cover AWS, Azure, Google, and give you some indicative on-prem costings as well that you can manipulate if you don't agree with that kind of on-prem rate card. So that's the first thing, is giving you visibility of where money is being spent and in what proportion across all of those different providers. The next area is then, well, if we understand where the money is being spent, how can we associate some budgets with that and give you budget management? Then the next area is being able to give you a price comparison, the ability to simulate different scenarios, to say, if I take this on-prem business service and I run it in a different provider, what would the price comparison be? Would I be saving money, or would I be spending more money? And then the final area that I'll touch on is optimization of cost. So once you've got a steady state, where's the visible opportunity to tune or turn redundant environments off to further reduce your spend within that multi-cloud environment? So here what we have is the landing page for Cloud Cost Control, and it's giving you that aggregated view of what the spend has been over the past 12 months, ideally. And then what we do is forecast that forward for the next 6 months. And you can see here that we are forecasting that forward, and we're giving you a high watermark and a low watermark. The more statistically accurate your spend rate is, the tighter that forecast is going to be. These views are pretty interactive as well. So what I can do is just focus in on or exclude certain areas. So if I just wanted to look at the overall trend of my on-prem spend and how that's going, then I can see how that's occurring as well. What you also get is at the top of the screen an indicator of whether month on month your consumption, your spend is going up or down, or where that's going, and I can change that to different time periods. So I'm looking at the current month now in terms of August, but I could look at last month and see what the analysis was just based on the previous month, or I can do it on any custom period within that. Let me just put that back to current month. Another capability here, which applies more to infrastructure as a service is being able to look at the amount of compute normalized hours that are being consumed there as well. And that gives you more of a capacity view that's been assigned within those environments, as well as looking at it from a cost view. The next area in terms of cost visibility is then to look at the cloud services themselves. And so this is where we're analysing and aggregating all of the invoicing and billing information across all of the different providers, and again, giving you this aggregated view from the top down in terms of where that spend is going. And you can see within our demo environment, by far and away, the largest element is compute. But if we look at the table below, you can see that we also cover things like database, RDS, and so on from the different providers. We can filter on any of these columns. So if I wanted to, I could just look at let's just do AWS. And now I can just look at the AWS billing information. I can drill into the detail around this. So if I look at RDS, I can see what the trend is and where we're forecasting that going forward. The actual resources that were consumed within that RDS, and even drilling down to the actual billing items within that as well. If I just pop back from here. All of these areas can be exported. We can download them as PDFs, JPEGs, and we can also save them as CSVs or some other format as well if you want to do some external analysis on this. So that's very much the first use case around cost visibility. The next thing is to say, well, that's all well and good, and we can do the forecasting, but can we assign some budgets to this so that we can use that to do some proactive notification? And so we have the concept of the ability to set budgets for individual services, and then we can roll this up and understand where the overspend is, where the underspend is, and whether, as a whole, we are in budget. Something that's been introduced with the last iteration or the last release of the solution is role-based access. So we can look at this in terms of business units or tenants and their ability to sort of manage their own budgets and get notification within that, as well as being able to look at it from a high level. If I just drill into one of these, I can see where my cost fee budget is and where the projected budget is going to go. I can set notification on this as well. And by default, what we're doing is looking at a notification which can be an email that's sent to a distribution list or to an individual when cost reaches 100% of the budget, or we project that the cost is going to be reached within 30 days. What's quite nice as well is that we can look at, well, what's the typical spend rate, and if there's an abnormal step change, i.e. something more than 120% of what we were anticipating, that can be a notification as well. So if something spurious suddenly goes on within the environment and there's a step change in spend, you would get that proactive notification coming through here as well. And what we also get the ability to change the sensitivity or the tolerances within those categories as well, if you wanted to. Another aggregation point is what we call capacity pools. So this is something that was just recently introduced into the capability or into the product, where we can assign new cost pools that can reflect an account or it could be some tagging that we've put on in the environment, or we can actually filter by the name of the entity that we want to assign to that area. The use case for this is if you wanted to understand spend from a logical grouping point of view in terms of a location, a data center, or it could be a certain technology within a data center, or it could be certain clusters within a virtual environment like VMware. And the benefit is that we can track and trend and do all of the notification of spend based on that grouping, but we can also do simulations en masse based on that grouping as well. So the typical scenario here is that you may be looking at a cluster that has a number of ESX hosts, and what you want to do is lift and shift that total workload into a cloud provider so that you can then decommission the physical infrastructure that's supporting that cluster. Because if you do it piecemeal on a VM by VM basis, then you're still having to spend in terms of your capital and OPEX on that physical tin until the very last VM gets moved off. So this gives us more flexibility when we start doing some of the scenario planning. That then is the second value area in terms of being able to look at things from a budget perspective. The third area I wanted to touch on now is simulating to the cloud. If I look at a business service, I can filter here and say, actually, I'm just interested in on-prem business services. The business service is driven by integration to CMDB from an on-prem point of view. In the cloud, that business service is being driven by your tagging conventions, and we can plumb it so that we can identify which tag is going to be used to derive the business service. But here I'm looking at the business services and the cost of those business services in descending order. And what I can do is select the top one, and I can see what my spend rate is across time. But the magic sauce is when I can simulate to the cloud. And so now what it's done is to looked at all of the instances here, and it's done a price comparison between AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and it's said that the most cost-effective thing is to go with Azure. If you looked at it just in terms of an on-demand pricing model, it would be 61% cheaper. If you did a 1 year reserved instance or fixed term, then it's 68% cheaper. And then if you did a 3 year term, then it would be 72% cheaper. We don't just look at lift and shift. We look at the profile of usage here, and we also do a mapping to where, or a right sizing to get the most value out of that particular environment. So you can see here that we've looked at some vital statistics in terms of CPU, memory, and storage within that environment, and then we've mapped that to a better utilization of storage going into the future. If I look at this as an individual machine, it not only says it's going to be 90% cheaper, but it also looks at the performance rating in terms of the spec mark or the benchmark for the on-prem environment, and then what we would anticipate in the Azure environment. And we're showing that even at a lower cost, we're nearly twice as fast in terms of the spec mark ratings for throughput. You can go through and override these as well in terms of the different T-shirt sizes within those environments as well. So that's looking at it from an on-prem point of view, but I could also go back and clear my filters, and I can go through and I could look at it from a particular service. And that one's running on-prem, or I can look at HR service, and I can say, well, actually, let's do a migration here. I know that half of it is on Google, but it's still showing I can do from cloud service to another cloud service. So this one is actually saying you're currently running on AWS, but guess what? If you went to Azure, then you could get that's the cheapest one that you could go for. I can also override which region if there's issues around locality of data within those environments. So that's the ability to do simulation. The simulation as it stands at the moment is based purely on infrastructure as a service. But the roadmap is pretty aggressive. By the end of the year, we'll be looking at some other simulation options as well. Predominantly, the first instance of that will be around things like database as a service. And then the final area in terms of the value use case is the optimization of cost. So this is where, I'm looking at the current run rate and looking to identify, do I have any idle infrastructure as a service that if I terminated it, I could save money? Or do I have some over-allocated environments that are still active, but, they've been over-provisioned? And here it's looking at that. So 90% of my idle environments are actually running in Azure. And I can click into this and get some details in terms of those environments. And the same with the over-allocated environments as well. It now can also look at reserved instances to say, if you migrated and came up with 2 new T-shirt sizes for your reserved instances, here's the visible opportunity to reduce your expenditure. And if we right-sized some of our reserved instances, we could do some savings here. This is still a work in progress, and we will come up with recommendations for things like storage going forward, and constantly adding to this. So I think that was pretty much the high-level overview that I wanted to give. To give you a feel for the rate card side of things, I can go in here and look at my settings, and if I do an edit here of the settings, this is where I can change my defaults in terms of that notification behavior across everything, and also my thresholds around underspend and overspend and so on. I can also look at these my on-prem costs and sizings around that. My on-prem T-shirt sizes that I could put in here as well. And if I go back to here and just do an edit on this one, you can see here that I can also apply some platform-wide discounts or surcharges, depending on if I want to add additional SKUs to the different providers. And so, as I say, that's pretty much my high-level overview. At this point, I'd like to hand back to Jonathan.
Thank you, Jim, and I hope everyone found that high-level demo informative and useful. If you can pass back control to me, what I'd like to do now is just do a recap.
It should be with you now, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jim. And as I said, any Q&A that people have, either we'll answer that at the end of the webinar, or alternatively take it offline and deal with those questions one-to-one. A recording is available and can be, I'll highlight how you can get hold of this, and we'll gladly forward it on to you for those who may have joined later. But just as a recap, we've looked at TrueSight Cloud Cost Control. So within BMC, there's a TrueSight suite, and we don't simply cover cost, and we've got two products there, Cloud Cost Control and Capacity Optimization, but we also have solutions that can look at performance and security as well. So there is a TrueSight suite, and it's not simply just about Cloud Cost Control. As investment and budget is being shifted from traditional on-prem infrastructure to cloud, companies clearly have a lot to learn. Gartner anticipates that about 80% of organizations will have budget overruns. This is due to lack of governance, or let's say a lack of insight into their cloud spend. This overspend will be caused by over-provisioning, something IT organizations have been doing for a long time now, but they haven't had to experience the immediate business impact that comes with purchasing cloud infrastructure using operational budgets. And the overspend is expected to be significant. Experience has shown that 70% the first 18 months of their cloud use. So as we talk with organizations, we find evidence of these projections on a regular basis. One large technology manufacturer, as an example, said that they were spending 200 to 300% more than they anticipated on public cloud. Another company that is in the educational sector that we've been working with expected a £2 million monthly bill from Amazon and got a £25 million bill. So TrueSight Cloud Cost Control can keep you from being included in these statistics. So public cloud equals complexity. This is a list. This list here is a list of major challenges that we hear about when talking with organizations about their cloud projects. Different buying centers inside a company, basically buying unchecked. This leads to a lack of visibility of what is being spent across the company, and even for a specific business unit. Public cloud spending can add up quickly. Without independent buying centers, it is usually the CFO that is the first person to understand the total company spend, not the situation you want or the CIO wants. Next, public cloud has made the business of selecting and buying infrastructure complicated. By offering more resources and price configurations that you have for on-prem resources. Azure offers about 65,000 different options for VM deployments, and AWS offers a staggering 1 million. oversized or unused resources. There are bad habits that have been formed with on-prem resources. We've seen that many organizations have not invested in capacity management, believing it's cheaper to buy additional assets. So having oversized VMs and storage, idle VMs, or utilization rates of 20% have become acceptable. These same habits become very expensive when moving workloads to the public cloud. You are paying for underutilized and unused resources out of your own operating budget. Finally, we're working with a company in Europe, a utility company, to help them right-size their public cloud infrastructure. They've moved 1,700 applications to over 20,000 VMs in AWS. They've got a bill for about 36 million, and we've helped them reduce their bill by about 20% and are continuing to work with them to decrease it even further. The goal is to reduce it by 30 to 40%. So reducing that $36 million bill to 30 or 40%. Let's look at the high-level architecture. Cloud Cost Control leverages the architecture, machine learning, and advanced analytics of our TrueSight capacity product. Part of managing costs is understanding and managing resource usage. With Cloud Cost Control, you get a visibility of resource usage and resource cost. Cloud Cost Control provides resource and cost data for on-premises and public cloud infrastructure. All resource data and cost data is collected and retained in a data repository that is shared by TrueSight Capacity Optimization and Cloud Cost Control. TrueSight Cloud Cost Control also provides visibility into infrastructure resource cost and resource usage. TrueSight Capacity is used for planning and managing infrastructure resources. In other words, onboarding new applications, understanding resources needed for business growth or changes. If an organization has TrueSight Capacity Optimization and buys Cloud Cost Control, they will immediately get a cost dimension added to all of the resources that they're managing within TrueSight Capacity Optimization. If not, Cloud Cost Control will collect both resource and cost data. Cloud Cost Control uses a CMDB and tagging to build business service views and custom views that are important to your business. Cloud Cost Control also uses resource usage and cost data to provide forecasting, simulated migration, cost estimations, delivering 5 use cases identified in the demo. So let's just recap on the Cloud Cost Control themes. BMC continue to rapidly develop and deliver new capabilities that help organizations better manage their multi-cloud resources and costs. New releases are delivered every quarter. Areas BMC will continue to focus on are optimizing resources and costs, i.e. covering cost and resource optimization, which go hand in hand. They'll continue to enhance optimization capabilities. Future releases of Cloud Cost Control in the roadmap will include identifying workloads that should be run on a schedule, workloads that are good candidates for auto-scaling, enhancing recommendations over and under-provisioned resources. And also, manage of reserved instances will be enhanced to include flexible RIs, and spot pricing recommendations also will be planned to be added. proactive budgeting, along with current machine learning capabilities used for predicting budget overruns. BMC will simplify this by adding and maintaining operational budgets by providing APIs for importing budget data. Visibility. The BMC plan to continue to expand platform coverage for both public and private platforms. Add more public cloud platforms based on customer demand, and extend on-premise coverage to include converged infrastructure. Enhance migration. They'll add more services to simulate migration, eventually provide a catalog of services for migration, and let users determine what resources are included in simulated migrations. Really, one of the key elements of cloud cost control is the ability, as Jim has shown you, to affect migrations and simulate migrations. What's the problem that organizations are facing, and what are they looking to achieve? Well, we believe they need a proper cloud strategy, and one that looks at their current application portfolio and determines which can be moved and which need to be recoded, and which can be brought off the shelf. And once applications have been migrated into the cloud, they need to be optimized, right-sized, and have an integrated cloud service management framework to provide the usual things like incident, problem, and change management. So we believe that CIOs need to consider asset discovery. We have a tool for that, called BMC Discovery Tool, security and compliance, and there's a TrueSight suite that covers both those areas as well. This is where BMC services can help with cloud consulting services. From a strategic advisory perspective, you can rapidly evaluate your organization's current cloud operational maturity, people, process, and technology. Validate any business case for applications and services which would provide cost and operational efficiencies and increased agility through migrating to the cloud. A key deliverable is a cloud service management roadmap for getting to your desired state that supports your business goals and objectives, whilst also making recommendations on procurement strategies, capacity optimization, vendor management, and the target cloud operating models with key supporting processes. From an optimization service perspective, this system stands up and embeds the target mode of operations and the new ways of working across teams within your organization responsible for operating in a cloud environment. In parallel, there will be a transfer and implementation of best practice in terms of continual cost optimization with the public cloud providers, including procurement, architecture, and the monitoring and management of changing cost models. Finally, Cloud Operations Management Service. This establishes processes for the effective monitoring, managing, securing, and enforcing compliance across teams operating in the cloud environment, something we found crucial in the companies that we're dealing with currently. It involves integrating and maturing cloud service management, addressing vulnerabilities, enforcing compliance, and continuously optimizing. As said, these are services KTSL through BMC can offer to organizations like yourselves. Just an overview of KTSL. We are BMC's longest serving UK reseller. I'm proud of that fact. Established in 2000, offices both in Corsham and Egham, 40 certified consultants. It goes on. Importantly, we've delivered over 1,000 successful projects to over 180 customers. Can I thank you, everyone, for taking time to listen to this demonstration, and ask if anyone has any immediate questions. Please fire them in now. I'm joined by our Managing Director, Mark Robinson, and we'll gladly try and answer them. If not, we can take these offline and send an email in to me and look to hook up and meet you and do a deep dive into the solution and your requirements. Thank you. So do I have any questions?
Hi, it's Lee Hastings. I put a question in the chat window at the side. I'm not sure you've seen that. So could you highlight which of these functionalities are an extra cost on top of the standard CSCO and which are included?
Firstly, Lee, may I apologise. I thought I'd sent you an invite. We caught it during the webinar, and glad you joined, and I'll send a recording of the whole event to you post the webinar. Mark,
that's great.
Mark, do you want to answer that?
Sorry, your question was in terms of the additional modules.
Yeah. So we've got TSCO version 11 currently about to put that into production. So which of these functionalities do we get as part of that, and which are an extra cost?
No, the cloud cost control, which you're looking at here, is a separate module, so for a separate cost. So this functionality is on top of an additional to capacity optimization you've got.
Okay, so this is all just the cost module which is on top?
It is, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we can share the details with you as well, that's fine.
Yeah, no worries.
Any other questions? Well, if anyone does have questions post the webinar, please email them to me. Can I thank everyone for attending? And as I said, a recording will be sent out to all of you to allow you to circulate within your organisation. We'll also put it online and provide a link to the demo on our YouTube site. Once again, thanks to Jim, thanks Mark, thanks to everyone attending, and we will be running further webinars over the next